This is the story of a widow who tried to love again, and entangled with his son's best friend who crossed an unthinkable line. A web of betrayal and heartbreak. What started as an innocent family turned into a clash of emotions, secrets and choices, which will leave you questioning the boundaries of love and loyalty. Stay with us as we unravel a tale where every decision has a price, and the ending will leave you speechless.
In the bustling city of Abuja, Nigeria, lived Clara Thompson, a 48-year-old widow who had built a thriving real estate company. She was known for her poise and success, admired by many for her ability to maintain grace, despite the challenges life had thrown her way. 10 years had passed since her husband's untimely death, and though she kept herself busy with work, she often felt the pangs of loneliness. Her only solace was her son, Marcus, a 26-year-old software developer who was her pride and joy. Marcus was the spitting image of his late father, not just in appearance, but in character. He was kind, hardworking, and fiercely protective of his mother. Their bond was unbreakable, and their home was filled with warmth and mutual respect. However, despite the love she shared with her son, Clara often yearned for companionship. It wasn't that she wanted to replace her late husband, but she missed the feeling of being loved and cared for as a woman, not just as a mother. This holiday season, Clara's life was about to change in ways she could never have imagined. Marcus's best friend, Ben, was coming to stay with them, as he did every year. Ben, a 27-year-old architect, had been a part of their lives for years. He was charming, witty, and had a way of making everyone around him feel at ease. Clara always treated him like a second son, but this time, something was different. When Ben walked into their home, Clara couldn't help but notice how much he had matured. He carried himself with a confidence that was hard to ignore. For the first time in years, Clara felt her heart skip a beat, a sensation she thought she'd buried along with her past. Ben's presence always brought a lively energy to the house. His jokes, his stories about his architectural projects, and his infectious laughter lit up the room. Clara found herself drawn to his charisma in a way that made her feel both excited and uneasy. She tried to dismiss the fluttering in her chest as nothing more than admiration for a young man who had grown into a fine gentleman. But deep down, she knew it was more than that. One evening, as the three of them sat around the dinner table, Ben shared a story about a recent project he was working on abroad, a luxurious beach resort along the Tanzanian coast. Clara listened intently, captivated by his passion and vision. She noticed the way his eyes lit up as he spoke, and she couldn't help but admire his ambition. Marcus, oblivious to his mother's shifting emotions, chimed in with his own stories about work, and the evening passed without incident. But later that night, as Clara lay in bed, she found herself replaying moments from the evening. She thought about Ben's smile, the way he looked at her when he spoke, and the way he made her laugh. She felt a pang of guilt. "What am I doing?" she whispered to herself. "He's Marcus's best friend. This is wrong." Unbeknownst to Clara, Ben had also started to see her in a different light. He had always admired her strength and elegance, but lately, he couldn't help but notice her beauty in a way that was new and unsettling. He tried to push the feelings aside, reminding himself that she was his best friend's mother, someone he had always respected. But the more time they spent together, the harder it became to ignore the growing connection between them. Over the days, the tension between Clara and Ben became palpable. They exchanged glances that lingered a little too long, shared conversations that felt a little too personal, and laughed at jokes that seemed to hold hidden meanings. Marcus, caught up in his own life, didn't notice the subtle shifts in their behavior. But Clara and Ben felt it deeply. One afternoon, while Marcus was at work, Ben found himself alone with Clara in the living room. They were discussing a book Clara had recommended to him, but the conversation soon drifted to more personal topics. Ben opened up about his struggles balancing his career and personal life, and Clara shared her own experiences of navigating life as a widow. As they talked, Clara felt a warmth in Ben's presence that she hadn't felt in years. She found herself laughing at his witty remarks and listening intently to his thoughts. Ben, in turn, was captivated by her intelligence and grace. There was an unspoken understanding between them, a connection that neither could deny. But as the conversation grew more intimate, Clara abruptly stood up. "I think we've talked enough for today," she said, avoiding his gaze. Ben nodded, sensing her discomfort. "Of course. I didn't mean to overstep," he replied, his tone sincere. As he left the room, Clara sat back down, her heart racing. She knew she was treading dangerous waters, but she couldn't bring herself to distance herself from Ben. She resolved to keep her feelings in check, but deep down, she feared it was already too late. One evening, Marcus announced that he would be spending the weekend out of town for a work conference. Clara and Ben were left alone in the house, and the air between them grew heavier with each passing moment. After dinner, as they sat on the porch watching the stars, Ben finally spoke. "Clara, there's something I need to say," he began, his voice hesitant. Clara turned to him, her heart pounding. "What is it, Ben?" she asked, though she already had an inkling of what was coming. Ben took a deep breath. "I know this might sound crazy, and I'm probably stepping out of line, but I can't keep this to myself anymore. Clara, I've developed feelings for you." Clara's eyes widened in shock. She opened her mouth to respond, but found herself at a loss for words. Ben continued, "I've tried to ignore it, but every time I'm around you, I feel something I can't explain. I respect you, and I respect Marcus, but I can't pretend these feelings don't exist." Clara stood abruptly, her emotions a whirlwind of confusion and fear. "Ben, this is not right. You're Marcus's best friend." I can't do this." Ben looked down, his expression filled with regret. "I'm sorry. I just needed you to know. I will leave if that's what you want." Clara shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. "No, Ben, you don't need to leave. Let's just take some time to think about this." As she walked back into the house, Clara's mind raced. She knew she had to make a choice, but every path seemed fraught with pain and uncertainty. Marcus returned home earlier than expected, eager to share news about a promotion he had received. As he entered the house, he found Clara and Ben sitting on the couch, their conversation interrupted by his sudden arrival. Though their interaction appeared innocent, Marcus was surprised to see his mother sitting so close to Ben. He couldn't ignore the tension in the air, but kept his cool so as not to get a wrong impression of what is happening. Over the next few days, Marcus began to notice subtle changes in the dynamics of their household. His best friend Ben and his mother Clara seemed unusually cautious around each other, and Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something was being hidden from him. One evening, he overheard a hushed conversation between the two, and though he couldn't make out the words, but the tone was enough to spark suspicion. Determined to uncover the truth, Marcus began paying closer attention to their interactions. He noticed the lingering glances, the soft smiles, and the way Ben's demeanor changed whenever Clara was around. It didn't take long for Marcus to piece together the puzzle, and when he finally confronted Ben, the tension reached a boiling point. "Ben, I need to know the truth. What's going on between you and my mother?" Marcus demanded, his voice steady but laced with anger. Ben hesitated, his expression filled with guilt. "Marcus, I didn't mean for this to happen. I respect you more than anyone, but I've developed feelings for your mother." Marcus's face turned red with rage. "Feelings? For my mother? Ben, how could you? You've betrayed my trust." As Marcus stormed out of the room, Ben was left to grapple with the fallout of his confession. The bond between the two friends had been shattered, and the consequences of their actions were just beginning to unfold. Despite Marcus's explosive reaction, Ben and Clara could not suppress their growing feelings for each other. They decided to meet in secret, aware of the risks, but unwilling to let go of the connection they had built. Each stolen moment brought them closer, but the weight of Marcus's anger hung heavy over their relationship. One evening, Ben and Clara met at a quiet restaurant on the outskirts of the city. The dimly lit room provided the privacy they craved, but their conversation was tinged with anxiety. "Ben, I can't keep lying to Marcus," Clara said, her voice trembling. "He deserves the truth." "I know," Ben replied, taking her hand in his. "But I don't think he's ready to hear it. We need to give him time to process everything." As they talked, a sense of determination grew between them. They resolved to approach Marcus together, to explain their feelings and ask for his understanding. But they both knew the conversation would not be easy. Meanwhile, Marcus's suspicions continued to fester. He noticed the small changes in his mother's demeanor, the way she seemed happier, lighter, but also more secretive. His frustration boiled over one night when he saw Ben leaving their house late, his expression serious but determined. Marcus confronted his mother the next morning. "Mom, I know something is going on between you and Ben. Don't lie to me," he said, his voice sharp. Clara hesitated, torn between protecting her son and being honest. Finally, she said, "Marcus, we need to talk. Please, let's sit down." As Clara began to explain, Marcus's face hardened. His worst fears had been confirmed, and the betrayal he felt cut deep. "I can't believe this," he said, his voice breaking. "You both lied to me. How could you?" Marcus's confrontation escalated into a heated argument, with emotions running high on all sides. "You had no right to do this," Marcus shouted at Ben, his fists clenched. "You were supposed to be my best friend, not this." Ben stood his ground, though his voice was calm. "Marcus, I never wanted to hurt you. But what I feel for your mother is real. I love her." "Love?" Marcus scoffed, his anger turning to disbelief. "You don't know what love is. This is just wrong." Clara stepped in, her voice firm but gentle. "Marcus, I know this is hard for you to accept, but Ben has been there for me in ways I never expected. He makes me happy, and I felt alive again for the first time in years." But Marcus was unmoved. "If you go through with this, you will lose me. I can't stand by and watch this happen." The ultimatum hung heavy in the air, and for days, the house was filled with silence. Clara wrestled with the decision she had to make, torn between her son and the man who had brought joy back into her life. Ben, too, felt the weight of the situation, but his love for Clara kept him by her side. Marcus, unable to stay in the same house, moved out temporarily. He sought refuge with a cousin, confiding in them about his feelings of betrayal and anger. But even as he vented, a small part of him wondered if he was being too harsh, if he could ever come to terms with the situation. Ben decided to take a bold step to show Clara and Marcus how serious he was. One evening, he invited Clara to a secluded beach, a place where they could talk without distractions. As the sun set over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Ben got down on one knee. "Clara," he began, his voice steady despite his nerves. "You've changed my life in ways I never thought possible. You've shown me what love truly means, and I can't imagine my life without you. Will you marry me?" Clara's breath caught in her throat as tears welled up in her eyes. She nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, Ben, I will." The moment was bittersweet, as both knew the challenges they would face. But for that evening, they allowed themselves to bask in their happiness. The weight of their circumstances temporarily lifted. When Marcus learned about the engagement through a mutual friend, his anger reignited. He returned home to confront them, demanding answers. "How could you do this without even talking to me?" he shouted. "Marcus, we wanted to tell you in person," Clara said, her voice calm but pleading. "This isn't just about us. It's about our family." But Marcus was inconsolable. "Family? This doesn't feel like family. This feels like a betrayal." As the wedding date approached, tensions reached an all-time high. Marcus's refusal to attend the ceremony weighed heavily on Clara, who longed for her son's acceptance. Ben tried to bridge the gap, reaching out to Marcus with letters and messages, but they were met with silence. 1 week before the wedding, Marcus visited Clara. "I need you to choose," he said bluntly. "It's either him or me." Clara's heart broke at the ultimatum. She looked into her son's eyes, seeing both the boy she had raised and the man who now stood before her. "Marcus, I love you more than anything. But this isn't about choosing. It's about accepting. I hope one day you can understand that." Marcus left without another word, his heart heavy with disappointment. For days, he wrestled with his emotions, torn between his love for his mother and his anger at what he perceived as betrayal. He considered not attending the wedding, but knew deep down that such an act would sever their bond forever. On the day of the wedding, the venue was filled with friends and family. Clara looked radiant in her gown, and Ben stood at the altar, his eyes filled with love and determination. But as the ceremony began, a commotion at the entrance caught everyone's attention. Marcus had arrived, dressed in a suit, his face a mix of emotions. He walked down the aisle, stopping in front of his mother. "Mom," he said, his voice trembling. "I still don't understand this, but I love you. And if this makes you happy, I'll try to accept it." Tears streamed down Clara's face as she embraced her son. The guests clapped, the moment a testament to the power of love and forgiveness. The ceremony continued, and as Clara and Ben exchanged vows, Marcus watched from the front row, his heart slowly beginning to heal. In the weeks that followed, Marcus made an effort to rebuild his relationship with his mother and Ben. It wasn't easy, but with time, they found a new normal. Through their struggles, they learned that love, in all its forms, requires patience, understanding, and the courage to forgive. Did this story leave you speechless? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We would love to hear what you think about Clara, Ben, and Marcus's journey. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more captivating stories, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Your support keeps us creating content you love. Thank you for watching.